Let me tell you what broke me. It wasn't the job, wasn't the back pain, the busted knees, or the goddamn raccoons that kept breaking into my compost bin. It was a bright red letter stapled to my fence flapping in the wind like a warning flag from HOA hell. Notice of non-compliance. Unauthorized livestock on residential property. You have 30 days to remove all poultry or face daily fines and legal action. I stood there, coffee in hand, wearing one sock and a Kiss the Cook t-shirt, staring at that piece of legal toilet paper like it had personally insulted my mother. Behind me, Rosie, my head chicken, gave a solid balk like she was backing me up. I turned around, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Well, Rosie, I think it's time we go to war. I didn't move here to fight. I moved here to get the hell away from everything. City traffic, office politics, HR seminars where people say, let's circle back, and no one ever circles back. I bought this place with the last of my sanity and a good chunk of my retirement. Just me, a fixer upper cabin by the woods, a rusty truck, a bunch of homegrown tomatoes, and a dream live cheap e-tags talk to chickens. That's it. That was the whole plan. But no, apparently peace is illegal in this zip code. Because you know who hates peace. Her name's Kimberly Halton. HOA president, two-time Miss Teen Tri-County finalist, full-time tyrant in yoga pants and a pink blazer. Drives a Lexus she can't parallel park, walks like every sidewalk belongs to her mother, smiles like she's about to sell you timeshare in hell. I first saw her 3 months ago. I was planting marigolds next to the chicken coop. Apparently, marigolds attract bugs away from chickens. Or maybe that was some hippie blog lying to me when she strutted up the gravel path like she owned the damn mountain. Clipboard in hand, sunglasses the size of a dinner plate. She didn't say hi. She just squinted at my coop like it farted in church and said, "I hope you're planning to remove that." I wiped sweat off my brow, looked at her, looked at the coop, and asked the only logical question. Remove what, the chickens or the entire structure? She blinked, didn't laugh, didn't even fake laugh. HOA guidelines strictly prohibit livestock. Poultry included. I raised an eyebrow. What about cats? I've seen at least 5 cats around here. Cats kill songbirds. My chickens are vegetarian. She didn't even flinch. I'll be filing a formal notice. Expect correspondence. And just like that, she click-clacked back down the hill, heels digging into the gravel like she was marking her territory. Now, here's the thing. HOA's got rules. Fine. I knew that when I bought the place, but my realtor swore up and down this lot was technically exempt because it bordered a zone without full enforcement. Karen, sorry Kimberly didn't care. She was the kind of person who puts former pageant finalist in her email signature and thinks chickens are just poor people parrots. So now we're here. Me, Luke Harrison, ex-electrician, part-time farmer, full-time pissed off. And 6 chickens who just got classified as a threat to suburban order. I stood there that morning looking at the warning letter at Rosie at the rising sun over the lake and realized something. This wasn't just about chickens. It was about freedom, about dignity, about telling Karen she can't control the damn sky just because she bought a weather app. And if she wanted a war, well, she just declared it on a man with a coop, a grudge, and high-speed internet. People think when a man moves to the country, it's because he wants to find himself. Bullshit. I moved out here because the city was grinding me into drywall dust, burnt out, fed up, one bad Zoom meeting away from tossing my laptop out a 6-story window. I used to be a commercial electrician. 15 years of crawling under buildings, rewiring hospitals and strip malls, dealing with contractors who'd sell their mother for a lunch break. When your stress levels are higher than the voltage, you're working with time to bounce. I sold my house, cashed out what I had left, and bought myself a plot of land with a crooked cabin, no neighbors, and a suspiciously quiet realtor. I remember the first night. Crickets so loud it felt like they were inside the walls. No sirens, no car horns, no upstairs neighbors stomping like sumo wrestlers. Just me, a mattress on the floor, and the sound of the wind, not caring who I used to be. Weeks turned into months. I rebuilt the porch, fixed the plumbing, started a little garden, And then came the chickens. Bought 6 from a local farm store. Tiny fluff balls that fit in one hand and pooped like they were getting paid for it. Built them a coop from scrap wood, rusted nails, and leftover construction mesh. The thing looked like a Pinterest fail, but it held up in a storm, and that's what matters. I named them like any sane man would. Rosie, Goldie, Cluck Norris, Hen Solo, Peggy, Omelet. Each had their own little chicken personality. Rosie ran the place. Goldie was sweet but would peck your toe if you wore yellow. Omelet. Well, let's just say I always kept the frying pan close. Those chickens gave me something I didn't realize I was missing: purpose. Routine. A reason to get up early that wasn't tied to an email from a manager named Todd. They ate bugs, laid eggs, dug little craters in the dirt to sunbathe like feathered retirees in Florida. And the neighbors. Well, the few who lived nearby didn't mind. The Hendersons waved when they passed and once left a sack of corn with a sticky note for your girls. The mailman started leaving little doodles of chickens on my bills. Even a group of kids came by once and painted the coop like a space rocket. No idea why I let them. It was working. For the first time in decades, I was building something for me. No bosses, no clients. Just quiet mornings, warm eggs, and the occasional dust bath explosion. But like all good things, it didn't last. It started small. A Lexus parked too long at the end of my drive. A woman with sunglasses and a clipboard standing way too still like a birdwatcher with a grudge. A drone buzzing suspiciously low over the coop. The air shifted. You ever feel it? That subtle chill before a storm rolls in, not in the sky, but in the way your skin just knows something's coming. I didn't know her name yet. Didn't know she was HOA president. Didn't even know I was officially under an HOA because the realtor said optional compliance. Whatever the hell that means. But I knew one thing: that woman was looking at my chickens like they were a crime scene. And when a woman with a clipboard and no smile shows up out here, it never ends in peace. I told Rosie that night while we watched the sunset from the porch. Some folks collect stamps. Some folks collect grudges. That one, I think she's got a whole damn library of them. Rosie balked. And I swear for a second she looked worried. If hell had a homeowners association, Kimberly Halton would be president, secretary, treasurer, and head of neighborhood surveillance. And she'd still find a way to form a subcommittee to spy on your azaleas. I first heard her name from the Hendersons. Nice folks mid-70s still mow their own damn lawn and drink whiskey on Fridays. I asked about the woman with the Lexus and the clipboard. Mrs. Henderson leaned in like she was about to tell me the secret to eternal life and whispered, "That's Kimberly. She runs the HOA," Mr. Henderson added, without looking up from his beer. "And if you value your sanity, son, stay off her radar." Too late. A week later it started. At first I thought it was coincidence. The local Facebook group Pine Lake Proud started lighting up with posts like, "Does anyone else hear animal noises in the early morning? It's disturbing my meditation practice." Namaste Lover 86, concerned about sanitation issues. Chickens carry mites right. Karen Cares. Official. Should we organize a noise and smell audit? Halton rules subtle, like a chainsaw in a library. Then came the photos. A whole Google Drive folder titled Harrison Backyard, 2024. Angled shots, zoomed-in images of my coop, my compost. Even my boots left out to dry. One had Rosie mid-squawk with the caption, "Decibel level estimated at 60 dB. Violation. I laughed so hard I almost dropped my sandwich. That is until a certified letter showed up 3 days later. Formal citation, HOA violation code 5.2.4. Unauthorized livestock, code 6.3.1. Non-permitted outdoor structure. Code 7.1.8, unregulated sound emission, exceeding recommended residential decibel levels between 6 SOAR to 9 ZIZOA AM. Accompanying fine $225, plus a charming sticky note. We trust you'll comply without escalation. Chaos H. She drew a damn smiley face. Now I'd been patient. Polite even. But when you're trying to enjoy your morning coffee and you get a letter suggesting your chicken is violating sound emission law, something breaks. I went to the HOA office, really just a rented out unit next to a failed frozen yogurt shop. Kimberly was there, blazer ironed within an inch of its life, lipstick sharp enough to file a key, clipboard in hand, like always. She didn't look surprised to see me. "Mr. Harrison, we've been expecting you." "Well, good. Saves me the trouble of kicking your door in." She smiled. "There's no need for hostility. This is simply about maintaining standards." "Harmony?" I gestured toward the folder on her desk. "You call stalking my coop at 6 a.m., Harmony?" She didn't blink. "Noise carries, Mr. Harrison, especially in peaceful communities." I leaned in. "So do lawsuits." She blinked once, a twitch in the jaw. Barely noticeable. But I saw it. That crack in the mask. When I got home, there was another letter in my mailbox. Not certified this time. Just printed. A petition. Residents of Pine Lake Meadows request the removal of unauthorized poultry to restore peace and public health. 13 signatures. Half I didn't even recognize. The kicker respectfully submitted by your Pine Lake HOA president, Kimberly D. Halton. That night, I had 3 beers, 1 egg sandwich, and a long stare at the stars. I thought about backing down, selling the chickens, playing nice. Then I looked over at Rosie, asleep in her little coop, like the fluffy anarchist she was. And I remembered what my dad used to say, "Son, some people use rules to build things. Others use them to trap people." So I stayed up till 3 a.m. Laptop open, fingers flying, HOA bylaws, county zoning codes, federal regulations, ADA compliance, emotional support animal statutes. I went deeper than a Reddit thread about flat Earth. And somewhere between page 143 of the HOA Charter and a USDA poultry guide from 1999, I found a crack, a small one. There's a certain power in knowing the exact paragraph that protects your chickens from a Karen. It's like discovering a cheat code in a game, only instead of infinite ammo, you get legal exemption from HOA noise citations. After the 3rd beer that night, I almost gave up. The laws were a mess, stacked like Jenga blocks written by bored lawyers and angry gardeners. But somewhere between a guide to reasonable livestock enforcement and a half-broken USDA link, I found it. Page 12 of a federal SHUDI document, Emotional Support Animals. ESAs are not considered pets, and housing providers, including HOAs, must provide reasonable accommodation under the Fair Housing Act, provided the need is verified by a licensed medical professional. My jaw dropped. "So you're telling me all I need is a letter and Rosie's basically a therapy chicken?" I wasn't messing around. Next day, I booked an appointment with Dr. Freeman, a therapist, who once diagnosed me with burnout, mild insomnia, and chronic rage at bureaucracy. We hadn't talked in 2 years, but he remembered me. I walked in and said, "Doc, remember when I said I'd lose it if one more person micromanaged my life?" "Yeah, it was a chicken that saved me." He blinked once, then nodded like he'd heard worse. I left with a signed letter stating Mr. Harrison suffers from anxiety and burnout related to prior work conditions. The presence of his animals provides emotional regulation and therapeutic benefit. Species listed poultry Gallus domesticus. I walked out of there feeling like I'd just weaponized a feather. Next stop, county clerk's office. I filed official ESA documentation under my property records. Then I walked straight to the HOA mailbox and slid in an envelope marked Reasonable Accommodation Request Pursuant to Fair Housing Act. 42 U.S.C., paragraph 3604. Inside was a copy of the therapist's letter, 3 pages of federal compliance law, and a sticky note that said, "Your move, Madam President, Luke." Karen's response came in exactly 2 days. This time, not a fine. A meeting request. The HOA board invites you to a special review session regarding your submitted ESA claim translation. We didn't think you'd fight back, but now we're sweating. So let's pretend we're in control. I showed up to the meeting in a flannel shirt, work boots, and a folder thicker than a college textbook. Kimberly was already seated, arms crossed, lipstick sharper than usual. The board members, 5 people who looked like retired high school principals, stared at me like I brought a rabid skunk into their bake sale. Karen opened with her usual ice-smooth tone. We're concerned this claim may constitute abuse of ESA policy. I pulled out Exhibit A federal guidelines. Not your call. A licensed therapist made the determination, not a neighborhood book club. One board member coughed. Another looked at his shoes. Karen tried again. There's still the matter of sanitation. Chickens pose health risks. I dropped a report from the local ag extension office. My coop passes all standards. Waste is composted. No rodents. And frankly, Karen, my chickens bathe more often than your HOA truck. Gasps. That got a chuckle from the old guy at the end. I think his name was Ron. Karen doubled down. This still sets a dangerous precedent. What's next? Emotional support goats pigs. I nodded. Could be. You want to see the county list of approved ESA animals. Pot-bellied pigs are legal. Want me to get one silent? I stared at them calm as a granite countertop. You wanted a quiet neighborhood. I wanted peace and eggs. You turned this into a war. Now I've got paperwork that says my chickens are legally safer than your HOA president's parking habits. Ron coughed again. He's got a point. Karen glared at him like he'd farted in church. The board adjourned without a vote. I walked out feeling like a man who just turned 6 chickens into a constitutional crisis. Back home, I cracked open a beer, sat on the porch, and watched Rosie fluff her feathers like she knew she'd just won a legal battle. I raised my bottle toward the coop, to emotional support and emotional destruction. But peace never lasts long with Karen. That night, the Facebook group exploded. Man weaponizes mental health to keep livestock. How did we let it come to this, just your chicken tyranny? And in the distance, under the hum of crickets and pine trees, I heard the sound of Karen planning her next move, probably with scented markers and legal pads. You ever watch someone get publicly humiliated and then double down like they've just been handed a damn trophy? That's Kimberly. After the HOA board meeting, where I legally declared my chickens as emotional support animals, any normal person would have taken the L and moved on. Not her. Kimberly doesn't just lose. She rebrands her loss as a threat to the integrity of the neighborhood and starts looking for a legal flamethrower. And that flamethrower had a name Todd Halton Esquine. Her husband, a man who looked like he ironed his shoelaces, smelled like printer toner and spoke in commas. He dropped by my cabin 2 days later. Didn't knock. Just stood at the gate holding a leather briefcase like he was auditioning for Law & Order HOA unit. I walked out in cargo shorts and a shirt that said, "My coop, my rules." He cleared his throat and said, "Mr. Harrison, I'm here as legal counsel for the Pine Lake Meadows HOA to inform you that we intend to challenge your ESA claim under Provision 4.1 of the Community Charter and its overlap with municipal health ordinances." I stared at him. Did you practice that in the mirror? He blinked. Once. I smiled. Cool, I'll respond in writing. With evidence, like a civilized bastard. He handed me a folder with documents that looked serious until you read the fine print, which I did 3 times with a red pen and a cold beer. The next week was a legal chess match. He'd email some clause from 2007 about livestock limits. I'd reply with a federal case ruling from 2016 about ESAs and local housing policy. He'd cite HOA precedent. I'd cite the goddamn Constitution if I had to. We danced like that for 10 days until I got tired of playing defense. So I made a call. There's this guy I know from the old days. His name's Jace. Used to work in digital PR, the kind of guy who could make a squirrel lawsuit go viral. I told him the story. Let me get this straight, he said. Your chickens are emotional support animals and your HOA is trying to evict them. Yup. And the HOA president is married to the lawyer who's threatening you. Yup. There was a pause. Then Jace said 6 words I'll never forget. That's internet gold, my man. 2 days later, the video went up. Just me on the porch telling the story. No music, no fancy edits, Just a man and his chickens and a pile of certified letters behind him. I ended it with one line. If defending my peace, my poultry, and my God-given right to breakfast makes me the villain, then hand me a cape. We uploaded it at midnight. By morning, it had 120,000 views. By lunch, the local news called. By dinner, Rosie had her own fan page. That's when it got real. My mailbox filled with letters from people who'd been bulldozed by HOAs. Veterans, single moms, grandparents. One guy said his HOA fined him for having the wrong color mulch. Suddenly, it wasn't just about me and my birds anymore. It was about all of us. About petty power trips in polyester suits and the right to live without someone telling you how many sunflowers are too many. Karen panicked. She tried to discredit me online, claimed I faked the ESA letter, said I manipulated the board, even floated a rumor that I was training the chickens to attack children. Seriously. One kid posted a video petting Cluck Norris while she sat in his lap like a damn therapy dog. That video got 2 million views and the caption, "This chicken is more emotionally stable than my dad." The tide turned fast. At the next HOA meeting, more people showed up than ever before. Some wore shirts with my face on it. Someone brought a sign, "Certified Clucker for Life." Ron, remember him. The board member who chuckled at my last burn, he stood up and said, "Maybe it's time we reconsider what this HOA is actually for." Karen tried to interrupt, but no one was listening. They were too busy clapping. For me, and for the chickens. I walked home that night under a sky so clear it felt like the universe was giving me a high five. Rosie met me at the coop gate. I looked at her and said, "You're not just a chicken anymore. You're a goddamn movement." She fluffed her feathers, and somewhere miles away I imagined Karen sharpening her eyeliner and swearing vengeance. Because this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The thing about people like Karen is they don't know when to quit. They don't even know how. They don't lose battles. They just file appeals. After the HOA meeting turned into a Luke fest and my chickens became online celebrities, I figured she'd back off. Maybe lick her wounds, pour some boxed wine, and scream into a beige throw pillow embroidered with the words "Live, Laugh, Litigate." But no, Karen didn't back off. She escalated. First came the letter from her husband/lawyer, Todd. More formal than last time, printed on embossed paper, like a wedding invitation to a lawsuit. "We intend to pursue legal remedies against Mr. Harrison for defamation, reputational damage, and psychological harassment resulting from the intentional viral targeting of HOA officials." I read it while eating deviled eggs. Honestly, it made the eggs taste better. Then came the inspections. Code enforcement showed up. Animal control. A health inspector. One lady said she was from the Environmental Livestock Sanitation Division. I looked it up. It didn't exist. She was just some intern from Kimberly's Pilates class holding a clipboard and wearing a fake badge from Etsy. They walked around with flashlights, took notes on things like presence of feathers and proximity of co-op fence line. One guy, clearly regretting his career choice, asked if my chickens ever expressed aggressive behaviors. I said, "Only when someone tries to take their eggs." He nodded solemnly and scribbled something down like he'd just cracked a murder case. But the real kicker, Karen, went to the press. She sat down for an interview with the local paper and said I was abusing loopholes in disability law, turning neighbors against each other, and weaponizing social media to intimidate a peaceful community leader. Peaceful. This woman had a drone over my house before Amazon did. The article ran with the headline, "Pine Lake HOA President Faces Backlash from Chicken Mob." The photo was gold. Karen in a power suit mid-blink, looking like someone just told her the town was being rezoned into a rooster sanctuary. The internet was not kind. Comments poured in. "I trust the chicken more than her. This lady needs therapy, not litigation. Bet her HOA fines clouds for being too fluffy." She tried to fight back, posted a Facebook video filmed in her Lexus crying about character assassination. Unfortunately, Cluck Norris was visible in the background, pecking happily in a viral clip with 500,000 views. Top comment that chicken's more emotionally stable than Karen. Meanwhile, something shifted in the neighborhood. People started talking, not just whispering, but real conversations. The Hendersons told me about the time Karen fined them $300 for hanging wind chimes. A single mom down the street said Karen threatened to report her over a kiddie pool in the front yard. A retired vet said he was once fined for overly patriotic flag display. Apparently 2 flags is fine. 3 is terrorism. We started meeting informally. Outdoors. Folding chairs. Coffee. They called it Chicken Council as a joke. But by week 2, we had printed flyers, a schedule, and people bringing pie. Kimberly couldn't stop us. Hell, she didn't even see it happening because she was too busy drafting new rules no one was reading. She tried one more move. Sent a letter to the county asking to reclassify our neighborhood as strict animal-free residential. The petition backfired. 73 residents countersigned against it. Some of them wrote notes. Let the chickens stay. Luke feeds my kid eggs. Karen's not the boss of me. My personal favorite, I trust the poultry. I do not trust the president. And then... nothing. Silence. For a week, there were no emails, no drones, no fake inspectors. I knew better. Karen wasn't giving up. She was reloading. So I started preparing too. Not just for the next legal move, but for something bigger. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person who ever got fined for painting their door the wrong shade of blue. About every single dad who couldn't afford to replace his non-conforming mailbox. About every grandma who got scolded for too many garden gnomes. You ever find something so perfectly damning, so beautifully incriminating, that you have to stop and ask the universe if you're being pranked? That was me staring at a stack of HOA meeting minutes from 2019. Specifically, agenda. Item 4.2, emergency poultry co-op removal, biological waste oversight. Waiver? Yeah, turns out Karen and her HOA buddies had once ordered the destruction of a family's chicken coop without notifying the county's sanitation department, meaning they broke the very regulations she was using to come after me. Oh, the taste of that hypocrisy better than fresh eggs. How did I get these records? Simple. Ron. Remember him, board member? Chuckled at my burns. Retired librarian with a nasty dislike for tyrants and pink blazers. He came by my cabin with a folder, a thermos of black coffee, and one sentence. Figured you'd know what to do with this. I spent the next 3 hours cross-referencing every line with county code. It was airtight. Karen and the HOA had authorized a co-op demolition without or proper biological waste assessment, resident notification, or any documented sanitation plan. Worse, they forged a waiver signature. That's not just a policy violation, that's a criminal offense. I called the county health office, asked a few innocent questions, dropped a few document numbers. The lady on the line paused and said, "Hold, please." 30 minutes later, I was forwarded to a legal investigator. He asked me to email what I had. I did. Then I waited. 2 days passed, then the hammer dropped. An official notice was posted at the HOA office, investigation pending, sanitation compliance audit, per section 14.7 of County Code. Translation, the county was coming in. Full inspection, full audit, and they weren't just looking at my chickens. They were looking at everything Karen had touched for 5 years. The neighborhood buzzed louder than the drone she used to spy on me. The Hendersons brought popcorn to my porch. Ron brought folding chairs. Even Todd, her husband/lawyer, started parking his car 2 blocks away, probably so no one egged it. One guy brought actual eggs. I had to talk him down. We weren't going violent, we were going legal. Then, a miracle. The HOA called for a special emergency assembly. Basically, Karen was cooked, and we were invited to the feast. It was held at the community center. Usually these meetings had 10 people tops. That night, there were over 70. Old folks, young families, teenagers who just wanted the Wi-Fi password. I walked in with Rosie in a crate beside me. Why? because if Karen was going down, I wanted the star of this saga present. Karen tried to open with grace, stood at the podium like a kindergarten principal about to scold the class, said words like miscommunication, operational error, and deeply regretful oversights. Nobody clapped. Ron stood up. Is it true you authorized property entry without county clearance? Karen squirmed. I was acting on information provided at the time. He cut her off. Is it true the HOA forged a sanitation waiver silence? A woman in the front gasped. Karen didn't deny it. She just blinked and swallowed. Then I stood up, held up the documents Ron gave me. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted eggs. You pushed, you lied, you broke your own rules, and now the county's coming. So here's my recommendation: resign tonight and let the neighborhood breathe. There was no applause, not yet, just tension, and then someone clapped, then another, then the room roared. Karen didn't say a word. She grabbed her purse, stepped down from the podium, and walked out the back door. Rosie squawked once. I like to think it was a victory cry. After that, the board held a vote. Unanimous. Karen was removed. Her husband was asked to step down as HOA legal counsel. Effective immediately. Ron. He was elected interim president. His first act, a motion to remove all fines and restrictions on poultry gardens and outdoor structures under personal wellness exceptions. It passed, 80 votes to 0. That night, the Chicken Council had its first official gathering. Bonfire, potluck, laughter, peace. I brought deviled eggs. Nobody asked questions. But I couldn't sleep. Not because I was worried, because I wasn't. For the first time since I moved here, I felt calm, and I realized this was never just about me. It was about drawing a line, saying enough, and making it stick. It's strange what peace sounds like after a long war. Not silence, not calm, just normal. Chickens clucking in the morning, wind through pine, kids laughing down the trail, a neighbor calling out eggs today like it's the weather forecast. That kind of peace doesn't arrive with a trumpet. It just slips in quietly, sits on your porch, and says, I'm here. You earned this. It's been 6 weeks since Karen walked out that back door. No one's seen her since. Some say she moved to a condo in a gated community where the HOA fines you for having potted plants that don't match the trim. Some say she tried to join a new board and got laughed out of the room. Me, I don't think about her anymore. That's the real victory. Ron officially became HOA president. He started every meeting with a joke and ended with pie. People actually showed up. No one yelled. One guy brought banjo. Another brought deviled eggs that frankly rival mine, and I respect that. As for the chickens, they're celebrities now. Rosie was featured in a short documentary called Feathers of Resistance. Goldie laid her 500th egg and was honored with a tiny plaque that read, Employee of the Month, every month. Hen Solo disappeared into the woods for 3 days, came back dirty and smug, and no one questioned it. Kids visit every weekend. They pet, they feed. They ask me questions like, can chickens feel love? Why do they nap in the dirt? Did you really take down an HOA with a hen? I tell them the truth. Yes, because it's warm. And not just a hen, 6 of them, and a stack of paperwork. The coop's been painted twice. Once by some art students, once by a group of retired vets. Both times it came out lopsided, loud, and full of heart. We left it that way because not everything needs to match a neighborhood color palette. Some things are meant to stand out, like truth, like kindness, like a coop full of defiant, emotionally supportive chickens. The town asked me to start a community workshop, teach kids about gardening, coop building, off-grid living. We turned an old tool shed into a classroom, hung up a wooden sign, the Free Range School, founded in feathers. I didn't plan on becoming a teacher, but I didn't plan on becoming the poster boy for HOA resistance either. Life's funny like that. Sometimes it hands you a lemon, sometimes it hands you a chicken, and sometimes it hands you both and dares you to make omelets. I still sit on the porch every morning, same mug, same flannel. The only difference now, no red warning letters on the gate. Just neighbors waving, roosters stretching, a porch light left on in case someone new comes along tired of fighting battles no one else sees. Because now if they show up, we got chairs, we got coffee, we got pie, and most importantly, we got chickens.